See, this is the tracing paper we're talking about with the numbers under it. See, this is it. And we put the numbers on each piece. Sometimes we repeat a number, or sometimes a number we can't find it, but it's usually here somewhere. Sometimes we put an A and a B on it too. If it's usually we take as much as we can fit on that slab of clay that we make, and the slab of clay is about 3 feet by 6 feet, and so we just take that much of the design. Well, different ones have worked at different times. Like some of the sisters, like Sister Josephine, worked with us for this one, for yours, and but then she went to Haiti, as I said, and so somebody else came to help me. So altogether, we have some volunteers that come too. Right now, we have about 7 volunteers, and they're all very good. They're very good. They're almost all retired school teachers, so they're going to be very particular in what they do too. And they do a real good job. But what they do is the glazing. They just do the painting of the pieces. They don't do the carving or the... Sister Magdala is beginning to help me do the carving with it too, but so far I've been doing most of the carving of it. So, and then it's in sections, It's almost like stained glass in a way, because where you have the leading in the stained glass, we have the grout joints in here. And that's why, if you notice that I try and keep the lines going so that it emphasizes the design. So, and even if it's around the Blessed Mother too, every piece is trying to cut that way so it looks like it fits into the pattern. You see? And that takes a little bit of planning to do that too, because we know the pieces have to be small enough. Like her face is really pretty big, and I think it's over a foot. And so there's always a danger that it could crack in the kiln. But most of the time, we've been pretty lucky that way. Well, the first thing that came to mind, of course, was Helen Keller, because she's the famous one, for blind and deaf hearing. So we thought we would look up an appropriate saying of hers that would fit in this. First of all, we were very happy to do that. We were so delighted to be asked to do that piece, because we just felt that we're helping somebody, that way. And I think that's the feeling we have for most of the pieces we do. We wanted to not just be an art piece, we wanted to be an inspiration for people. We want them to look at it and think of something better, So that's kind of our purpose anyway. So this fit right into what we would like to do. And so, but in doing that, then, we thought how nice it would be to put in some Braille pieces too, so that anybody who was blind could have the same saying. They could feel what our message was from Helen Keller. And so that's how it came about. And then when we did the design, we presented it again, and it was approved, and that's how we carried on from there. We had, we were so careful about the Braille, though. We didn't want to say something that was offensive, So we had them read it to a, who knew Braille, checked on us to be sure we had the right thing down. So that's how it all came about.
One of the things,
I like to do that sometimes, because there is a glare sometimes on these pieces because they're so shiny. So it's hard to get the right kind of lighting. If it's outside, it works very well because the light's coming from all over. But when it's inside, sometimes it's a little difficult to see if there's a glare on it. So I like to try and keep some pieces without the glaze, so that that takes up some of that glare, and the material itself is so good. We like the material that we use. The clay that we use is very good. And so we like some of that to unify the piece too. Because every place where there's a joint, then that'll be a dark clay or a dark grout. But pieces in between that carry through that same idea. Like sometimes we have a line going through the piece, and so that it carries through the color. The color of the clay goes through with it. And that's the unglazed pieces help unify the piece that way. I like to put texture, and like you see in here to let the grain of the, these to indicate rocks, you have a little bit of a feeling of texture. So that's deliberately done that way because the piece is flat to start with. And so we do try and put some texture in, because that too helps unify the piece, and it also gives a little different surface, makes it a more interesting surface to it too, rather than just the slick kind of flat like this. It has a little bit more of a personality to it, you know. And we appreciated being invited to that too, is we like to see the results. We like to see the reaction of people looking at this too. And hopefully it's going to again inspire them in some way too. And it's the beauty of the piece too, you know, and we really want them to appreciate it. And they show their appreciation that way. So we're very happy to be there to see that kind of thing too. Some of the pieces, like on the chapel, they're most of them are from Italy. They brought in from places, and when the sisters would go to Italy for some reason, they needed to go to Rome for meeting with the Pope or whatever, they would always bring some things back, and so a lot of those things have been placed in the chapel place. But anything that's flat like this, that's a ceramic mural. Yeah, then we did those. Yes, and there are quite a number on campus here. Yeah, big ones too. Yeah, I started this, I said, with the Franciscan Center, but I've been doing art since I was a child. I think my first mural was in the 2nd grade. One of the nuns put up the wallpaper on the wall in it was like a walk-in closet, where the coats were. And well, instead of the coats, we had the wallpaper spread out. I did all the drawing, and the students would fill in with the color. So I think I was destined from all eternity to make murals. And then when I was teaching at Stritch, we did all the backgrounds for plays. They were all big things always. So I think, as I said, it's part of maybe what I'm supposed to be doing. That's part of my background too. I think I was in 6th grade when I did a full-length figure of Jesus. It was supposed to be for a play. And at the end of the play, the curtain was supposed to open on heaven. And there was my figure of Jesus. So I did a life-size figure of Jesus. I was in the 6th grade for that one. So as I said, but I was always encouraged along the way. My mom and dad encouraged me all the way through to take art whenever I went any place. And but I think it was the sisters at St. Hedwig's School, which no longer is. But those were our sisters, actually, the same ones that I'm a community of. I belong to the same community now. They really encouraged me. They saw that was a God-given talent. It had nothing to do with me. It was God-given. So they encouraged that. And I think that's all the way through. They kept track of me all through high school, all through Marymans. I graduated from Marymans before I entered here. They kept track of me all that time and kept giving me some little commissions in between too to keep up the artwork. So that's part of my background. Mm-hmm. I've worked with various media actually, and I had my degree from Bowling Green, and the art degree is from Bowling Green. I have one from Xavier in Cincinnati for English too. So when I first started teaching, I was teaching English and art, and that was at Cardinal Stritch High School. And so I was there for a number of years. And then when we got into this, when I moved onto the campus here, onto our Mother House grounds, that's when the Franciscan Center went up. And when the Franciscan Center went up, there was one wall that was going to be solid brick. And so the General Superior at the time said that Sister Jane Mary could put up a mural there. And that's how we got started. So the first thing we did was a 40-foot figure of Jesus. And that was really very tense and very nervous, very nerve-wracking actually, because we were putting it up as the men were putting it up while we were still working on it. So that was very, very nervous. We did a lot of praying at that time. So that's how we got started. And then it just seemed that news just spread from one to another. Then the next thing I think was the Orthodox Church here in Sylvania. And that one, they wanted something to replace their paintings they had. They had icon paintings on the outside of their church, and they were peeling too and fading. And so they thought this would be something more permanent. And so that's what we started. That was the first thing we did off campus, was the one for St. Elias Church in Sylvania here. And then after that, somebody in Monroe saw that when there was a blessing for that. It was in the blade. And so somebody in the parish saw that, and they said, couldn't we use something like this too? So that was the next thing we did. And then things just keep passing from one person to another, and that's how we've been doing this ever since. Now, that was a long, long time ago. That was in the 80s even. That was in 1980 something. I forgot when the Franciscan Center went up, but I think it was about 1980 something. Yeah. So that's the background behind all this. And so we think we're doing what God wants us to do because we keep getting these commissions, one thing after the other. There's a kind of lull for a while, and then somebody else will ask us to do it again. So that's how we've been working all along. We have an art curator now, and she's trying to keep track of everything. And she tells me there's over 200 of them, but I don't know. I never really counted them. We never even kept track of it. We just kept going, and that's it. The first thing I do is go wherever anybody has commissioned anything. We go there first, and we talk to the people there to see what they're thinking, what they want. If they have some idea, we try and go along with that idea. Sometimes they don't. They just open it up to us. And so we try and talk to them and see what we think would be something that would be appropriate for them. And then I make a design, and I do it quite detailed too, so they know exactly what it's going to look like. And then, because sometimes when we say that it's going to be ceramic tiles, they picture them as being squares, and we don't do it that way. We do the whole kind of fluent kind of patterns with it, with calligraphic kind of lines in between. So after we talk to them, then we do the design, show it to them. If they approve of it, or if they make any suggestions, we will take suggestions too. And if we think it's a good suggestion, but we have to satisfy ourselves too, So, and usually they're very accommodating, though. They usually take our word for it, that it's going to be okay. So anyway, and then that's when we begin the process. Then we start enlarging it the exact size. And when we make the enlargement, then we roll out a slab of clay, and then we take sections of it, just parts of it, especially if it's a big piece like this. Then we have to do it in smaller sections. Usually it's about maybe 3 feet by 6 feet of the slab of clay. And then we cut it, we trace it on there, and then carve it. And that's the part that's like sculpture, because it's like in low relief sculpture. And then once that's done, then it has to dry. It's all done in pieces. We assemble the pieces again, and we number the pieces on the tracing paper that we use. We have to use a certain kind of tracing paper. Other regular paper would kind of, when it's wet, it kind of breaks through. But this one is very firm. So we put numbers on the back of each piece. I can show you the numbers here. There's a number on the back of each piece. And then we didn't always do that. We found out the hard way that that'd be the better way to do it. So, and then the pieces have to dry thoroughly. It's a kind of a long, drawn-out process, because the pieces have to dry thoroughly. Then they're fired, and when they're fired, I don't think I have any fired pieces here. It's a low fire first. Then we glaze the piece, assemble it again, glaze the pieces according to the colors that we want, and then it has to be fired again. And each firing takes 10 to 12 hours, and you can't open the kiln until at least 24 after that, so that it cools off, because they really get very hot in there. I think it goes up to like 2,000 degrees, 2,300 for some of it. So, so it takes quite a bit of time, to do all of that. And that's why we usually don't go on a time schedule. We'll try and be finished by a certain time if that's required, but we don't give any promises, because anything can happen in the kiln. It can happen that the piece can break. Sometimes if it breaks, and if it's not too bad, we can use it anyway. We just make 2 pieces out of it. But if it shatters or it's beyond use, then we have to do the piece over again, which would mean starting from clay again and starting the whole process over again, even for one piece.